If you're like me and a bit of a weekend warrior with dreams of racing across continents in your spare time, then you probably have challenges like I do. Time off work is limited, money's limited, so I wanted to run through in this video my experience over the last couple of years of entering those kinds of races. Some really good experiences, but also some pretty not so good, in the hope it will help you to book the right race for you and have a really amazing adventure first time. Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel, and I'm back. Feels like a long time away, to be honest with you. I think the longest break I had on this channel since I started it 2 years ago was a week, I think. I've been away for something like 6 weeks now. So welcome back to the channel to you and me, I think. If you are new, you haven't watched any videos before, I'm Andy. I'm an ultra cyclist on the south coast of England, and I'm riding through the South Downs, and it's the first time I've been out here for weeks. I haven't ridden much outside of Portsmouth really since I got back from Via. The recovery's been a lot longer than I imagined actually. Physically, not so bad. Mentally, for whatever reason, I've been quite depressed. I don't really know why. I have been depressed in the past, but yeah, that kind of took me by surprise a little bit. But how can you be depressed riding through this? I'll stick a plaster on that for now. If you were around after Bihar, then you know that I quite like to do a bit of wash up after the events, make some videos kind of reviewing how it went for me, how the event was, partly for me just to keep a record of like how these things went, but also I like to think that people watching these videos, they might go race the events I've raced, and if there are any pitfalls, then avoid those pitfalls. Climbing now, I don't know why I choose to do this in the hills every time. But yeah, this video is going to be more about the long ones, and specifically Transcontinental race and Via race, because that's my experience. And in making this video, I learned a new word: grifter. So speaking to my buddy Rob yesterday, because I wanted to talk about this, but I really didn't want to come across like I'm being negative or just being controversial for the sake of being controversial. And he said, yeah, you don't want to be a grifter. And that's exactly right. A grifter is somebody who basically misleads and misconstrues things for their own profit, and that's not what I do on this channel. So I just want to make that extra clear, really. Maybe take the title, whatever I title this as, with a bit of a pinch of salt. But at the same time, I've spent a couple of years entering these races. I've had some really good experiences, some not so good experiences. And when I speak to people out on the road at races and events, they've had the same, but I don't really hear these things kind of being spoken about. So I'm going to strap on my big boy pants and maybe my flame suit in case anybody disagrees with what I'm saying, but at the end of the day, these are just my experiences, so let's get into it. So where to begin? I think to talk about this kind of thing, I need to go way back, really. And don't worry, I'm not going to go through my whole life story, but I've been riding endurance for maybe like 6-7 years since I started riding longer distances. And I'm not the kind of person that just jumps into some of the most difficult races in the world without doing some prep and having a bit of a roadmap to getting there. So I started looking at these races a really long time ago. Bear with me. So quite a few years ago, I started riding a bit further and a bit further and a bit further. And at the time, I was looking at things thinking, what's the furthest you could push this? What are the biggest events that amateurs can enter in this kind of space? And 6-7 years ago, not very many names come back, to be honest with you. And yeah, the Transcontinental race is the main one that would come back. Maybe one or two others, but that's the one I saw. And at the time I looked at it and thought, well, that sounds to me like the Tour de France for amateur endurance riders. I'm probably never getting there. I'm never going to be able to get to that level, but fast forward a few years, I rode my first 100 miles, my first 200 miles. I rode London, Edinburgh, London, Paris, Brest, Paris, and I thought to myself, I think I'm ready to give it a go. So 2 years ago, I entered the Transcontinental race, number 10. I'd kind of seen that the criteria for getting in was a little bit difficult, but I did all my due diligence, checked the manual and things, and I got a place. So I raced TCR 10. That's kind of where this channel comes in, to be honest, because the first videos I made were at Paris, Brest, Paris. So if you go back a little way, if you weren't around at the time, you can see the videos from the Transcontinental race. And full disclosure, to give you all the facts, I'm going to give you everything. I didn't finish that race, so I think I made it around about 1,000 kilometers before my knee exploded, and I had to turn back and try to ride home. So I'm kind of basing this off of that. I had all the process of getting registered, accepting my place, building my route, meeting everyone at the start, getting on the road, and kind of operating within the parameters and the rules of the race for about 1,000k before I had to scratch. So all I could do really was pick myself up, dust myself off, and then get ready for TCR 11. So flash forward a few months, and then I get my registration in for TCR 11. I pay 50 quid to register my interest again, and it's the same application basically as TCR 10. So thinking, why would it be any different result? I tick all the same boxes and everything, and then I came on here and put it out there basically. That's my plan for 2025, to race Be Hard, to race the TCR, and not long after that, I get an email through telling me, sorry buddy, not this time. There wasn't any reason or anything given either, so I'm none the wiser as to why I didn't get a place that year. What I might want to do next time to try to improve my chances. No waiting list or anything like that either. Where's the effect of better luck next time? Something like that. So I know how entitled these kind of things can sound. It's just a race and everything, but it's what I was building up to, sort of training for. And it was a massive disappointment, but I came on, I asked for your help. You guys gave me some tips and pointers and who to go and speak to, and I managed to get a place on VIA. And at that point, I did know VIA. I'd seen it, I'd seen the race. I've been so fixated on the TCR for so long that I really wanted to tick that off. And by the time this all happened, the doors were closed on VIA. So registering for the TCR and finding out you didn't get a place around Christmas, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be out of luck for any kind of race of that size the following year. Luckily though, I badgered Ian, who runs VIA, and he suggested in a little while he might try to open the doors again. It's a lot of work to do that, but he might try it. And in the end, he found some places for me and a few others that didn't make it into the TCR. And I'm so glad they were able to do that. I already had a pretty good idea of where the route was going for VIA. I'd seen it, but not really given it some full consideration or planned the route. But when he said that, I was like, take my money. There you go. This is kind of where I started to kind of slot in nicely in the VIA community. So I'll probably say at this point, I'm not part of the team. I've got no reason to sell VIA. I paid full price the first time. And the reason I'm talking about it now is because I've just registered for Chapter 3 next year. So I'm going back a second time and I can't wait. Then found out that Rupert and Matt were both going to be there, and they're some good friends of mine. So really excited to be going to VIA. So flash forward a few more months and I'm heading to the south of Italy with Rupert, funnily enough, to Germanicus for the start of Chapter 2. And once I got there, the differences really started to show. I was noticing more and more that people seem to know each other really well, and that is the ultra community. I know that everybody knows each other fairly well in the ultra cycling community. But I heard that something like 70% of the field from Chapter 1 came back to Chapter 2, something like that. And that's a pretty good result. I think straight away the tone of the briefing felt really different. Getting to know Ian and Ingeborg and Pete and the organisers of the race. It might be at the moment, it's a smaller event than the Transcontinental race. I don't think it will be for long. I think it's going to grow and grow. And it'll be interesting to see how much Chapter 3 grows compared to Chapter 2. But it had much more of a family feel. It felt like coming to a little family or a commune or like a reunion And it's because it's exactly what it was. I didn't really think too much of it in Giovinazzo. I knew that's where chapter 1 finished. Everybody came back to start chapter 2 in Giovinazzo. But once I got through chapter 2, it kind of all made sense. Once we finished the 4,000k race, such an epic adventure. And this time we finished in the prologue in Amerongen in the Netherlands. I've now got a real affinity for that place and the people and the team and the riders that I met at the end, the riders that I met during the race. I know a lot of them are going to be at chapter 3. And going back to the prologue, where that really emotional finish kind of happened, it's really exciting. And not only that, we leave there as the start and we head into the Scandinavian countries. We go through all those really beautiful Scandinavian countries I'm not that familiar with really, and then finish in Norway together again. And that's really cool. I think that's one real difference I see and appeals to me, is that the route changes every year for Via. It's always going to finish, and as far as I know, it's always going to start where the previous one finished. I'm a bit gutted I missed the first one, so I haven't snaked all the way across like some people have already. So that's a really cool feature of Via. A lot of potholes, bear with me. Rather than starting and finishing in the same place or a similar place with different parkours and checkpoints, we're snaking our way all over the place, and who knows where Via is going to go in the future. If we finish in Norway and chapter 4 starts in Norway, then where does it go from there? I think it's a pretty cool idea because I really want to see where it goes. But anyway, I did say I was going to gush a little bit, and I just had a really good time and I really want to put that across. And there are some areas I just think they were leaps and bounds ahead of my own experience at the TCR. When you don't have unlimited money and time, then you won't have the best time possible. I don't think many people speak about this sort of thing because they're probably worried they're going to tick somebody off at the TCR and never get to race a lost art event again. And I hope that's not the case for me. Yeah, there were a few other areas where it was just night and day. I'm not sure if you're aware of any kind of controversies in the TCR to do with people taking out of GC. By the way, if this is helping you decide where to spend your time and your money, and helping you in some way, consider subscribing to the channel, give the video a like. Anyway, back to the video. And if you're entering the Transcontinental race, you can finish the race, you can be taken out of general classification, so you don't finish in the leaderboard because you broke a rule essentially, and the rules are there for everybody to see. They're just a bit vague. I think the biggest controversies that I've seen a couple of times, Josh Reed was one. He was taken out of GC and basically disqualified. There was a guy called Anatoly and somebody else, and for the same reason, they basically rode with another rider for a short period of time. And I mean, this is a biggie for the Transcontinental race. I don't know if there are other rules that are broken regularly during the events, but that's the one I've seen a couple of times. And Josh Reed, for instance, was a bit of a scary one. Hang on. And I bring up Josh because I've been in his position, his exact position, funnily enough, on Via Race. And he put up a video, and I thought he was going to cry, bless him. Managed to finish the race. I don't know what place he ended up in, but he was emailed and told that he was taken out of GC and disqualified, basically because he rode with another rider over a parkour. But he was told in a control, there are dogs, it's dangerous, ride in a pair if you can. And he was attacked by dogs, and they were okay because they were in a pair. And then sure enough, further down the line he was told, actually no, we don't like that, I'm afraid you're disqualified. And in Via Race, on the first gate I think it was, there was a sheepdog at the top, protecting its sheep, doing its job, but one of the riders was bitten and it took hold of his whole leg, and he had to go and get medication, injections and tablets and things, and he actually finished 5th, believe it or not, finished the whole race with a dog bite. But we were all told at that point, there's a dog there, it's dangerous, if you can, ride over the top in pairs, groups, be safe. And sure enough, there were dogs. They didn't come for us, but it was one of the most creepy, freaky experiences, hearing them right there, but not going for us. But the point is, if there were one of us, if we were alone, maybe we might have been attacked like the first guy was. But the point is, take a common sense approach. We were told to do that to be safe. No one else got bitten, everybody else was safe. I did crash because of other dogs further down the hill, but that's by the by. And I think the Anatoly situation, they were just sure they were in the right. A really short amount of time, up a climb, chatting, and they were disqualified. That's a real shame to me. It isn't the rules. It's not massively clear on what you can and can't do, how much time is inappropriate. And the response from Lost Art is basically just don't do anything that draws attention to you. And it's up to you as a rider to be careful about that kind of stuff. And it's one of the first things that really surprised me with VIA. During the briefing, that's one thing Ian mentioned. He wants us to have those kinds of interactions. He won't ban people for riding together. Yes, be an adult. If you're using it to get an advantage in some way and you're caught doing that, you're going to be disqualified. But his point of view, and it was so refreshing, was you're going to meet people on these events. You're going to do one event a year, maybe two events a year. But the people you meet on these events, that you spend maybe half an hour on a climb with or something like that, might end up being friends for the rest of your life. And it really is true. I've made some really good friends in the ultra scene at events. And if you take away the ability to meet people during races, it really takes away a massive part of the experience for me. If that's how you want to race, then race that way. That's in the rules for the TCR, be aware of that. Be very careful, that's the way they run it. If that's the kind of race you want to enter, then you're in the right place. But I think it's good to have the choice. For me, if I want to ride with someone for an hour or two, I can. If I want to have the kind of race where I don't talk to anybody, I can do that too. It's a choice. I actually ended up riding with a guy called Leven. He paid for some accommodation for us and we rode for like half the evening. It was a long climb, so we were on a climb most of it. Descended the other side, attacked by a dog, I crashed. And we ended up sharing an Airbnb together and then went our separate ways the next day. And he's a good mate now. He paid for the accommodation, I paid him back. I'll see him at other events and I hope he watches this. But yeah, if I wasn't able to have that kind of interaction, I'd be on my own again when I got home and wouldn't have made any friends. Right, I'm gonna see if this cafe is open because I really fancy coffee and some cake, so wish me luck. That's better. Just had a piece of toffee apple sponge with a cappuccino, and an old lady in the cafe told me that if I'm concerned with my fitness, I should watch it with a cake. So, noted. Anyway, this is probably again longer than planned, this video, but sometimes I think you need good endurance just to watch my videos. But it's quite a bit to go over after 4,000k race. One other main key difference I noticed is that rather than having checkpoints that are manned, I think all the TCR checkpoints are manned. I think at Trans-Pyrenees race they tested the gate system, but that's how VIA run things. You have a couple of refuges you'll reach that are manned, somewhere to probably sleep, shower and wash and everything. For the most part, all of the gates that you pass through that you have to hit are geographical coordinates that you just ride through. That works fine for me. In a way, it's less faff, less time. I just roll straight through, make sure the tracker picked me up in the right place. I don't have to stop, haven't got a piece of paper to get stamped. I got my cap stamped and that was pretty cool, so that's plenty. And they just stamp those at the refuges. But that's one big difference. The TCR will be, I think, mostly manned controls, whereas VIA, there's a couple, and that's your lot really, but that was fine for me. But yeah, interestingly, I think Trans-Pyrenees race this year, they had one gate like VIA, the same way the VIA run theirs. And I think it was a little bit controversial because some people missed it. It'd be interesting to see that whether or not TCR go that direction, if that was a test. And if they maybe take the VIA approach and not have any manned checkpoints to save money, but let's see what happens. I'll fast forward now towards the end of VIA. I'll start wrapping this up, don't worry, but when we got towards the end, Ian and Ingeborg were there at the end and they were at the finish line for pretty much everybody. I got in about 2 AM, so people were there for me still. And they were there for the whole thing. They're like the mama and papa at the event, and it really feels like that. And when we got to the meal, they were serving us our food. And that's one thing I say, actually, they did a really good job The food was very good quality, both ends. Italy, I'd expect them to be quite prideful with the food. The food in the Netherlands, also really good. And not only that, Via has a broom wagon. So Pete was the mechanic for Sarah Ruggins on her record attempt. You should know who she is. He was her mechanic, and in Via he's the broom wagon. So he's there if people get in real deep crap and they need a mechanic, he'll help you, or he'll scoop you up if he can. He drove me home after the finish. So I was driven home from the Netherlands to London for me to get a train home. That was really nice too. And all little things that kind of, I think it's hard to maintain for an event as big as the TCR. And I don't know if they necessarily focus on that side of things too much anyway. But yeah, anyway, almost over this bloody climb. I think we made it. So I'm going to start wrapping this up. I've got one more point that I really noticed before I let you all go. I'm sure that the majority of people have probably left already by now anyway, but if you're thinking about these events, then hopefully you stuck around and they're useful points. But I got some emails after the event because I broke the rules and I didn't realise at the time. We all got a bit of a dressing down in the debrief because we all missed one road. Pretty much everybody rode an illegal road, and that was dealt with. We all knew we were in trouble and nobody got penalised because it was everybody. So I kind of knew something was going to come eventually with penalties or whatever, but we were told nothing would come at that one. But it turned out that I rode a fairly substantial amount of time on a road that would be considered in the UK a motorway, and I did not know that. And I got an email out of the blue, rather than being just, here's your penalty, deal with it, which is kind of what I would have expected. I got an email from Ian, the organiser, basically saying, can you give me some feedback on this road? And I said, well, yeah, if it was the UK, wouldn't particularly enjoy it, but in the grand scheme of the race, compared to Italy and the south of Italy, it wasn't too bad. And then transpired that, okay, it wasn't feedback he wanted really, it was to understand whether I knew what it was. But yeah, I had to work out the amount of time I spent on there. I had to work out what my advantage would be. When I gave that to Ian, he said, well actually no, your average speed was X, so I think it's more like Y, what do you think? And I agreed, and I think I lost an hour or two in penalties, added onto my time, something like that. And I accepted it, and I didn't expect to be involved in how my penalty was going to be calculated at all. And on top of that, he did tell me that if it turns out that my penalty means I'm going to go up a place or down a place, he'll get in touch with the people either side of me and get their opinion as well, whether or not they think my penalty is fair, should I go down a place. And I don't know what the result is yet. I think I'm like 30th, something like that. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning it is kind of the contrast really. When I had that interaction, it kind of made me think of the email I got from the TCR with nothing at all, just thanks for the 50 quid buddy, but better luck next time. Yeah, I think they could do a bit more on that front really. That's my feedback. Hopefully it's not taken the wrong way, but I don't think it's a lot of effort to say this is what you could change in the future, consider this, or even 50 quid a head. I don't know how many applications they get. Knock up a spreadsheet, make a waiting list. Tell me I've got 10 places or whatever. Because what happened was, 2 months later, they started sending emails to people, not a broadcast or whatever, but just particular people offering them places. And one of my viewers came to me and said, have you had this? Forwarded me the email, copied in Andrew from the TCR and said, Andy might want to go. By that point I was sorted. I'm really glad I ended up at Via. But from their perspective, if they just had a waiting list or communicated a little bit better, then people might hold a little hope and hang on for their place at the TCR. But I suppose the reality is they got so many people applying, they're not going to struggle to fill their roster, are they? Anyway, you'll be glad to hear that's pretty much the end of this, the things that I kind of noticed between the two events. The things I noticed between the two events, they're kind of similar but very different, and considerations I think that are really worth bearing in mind if, like me, you can't race very many events and you want to have the best possible time, and if you want a race that's structured the way the TCR is structured, then it's the right race for you. But the way I see it, the majority of us, we're not in the top 10, we're not in the top 5, we're competing for mid-pack or further back. Why go through all the additional stress to preserve my 35th place or whatever it is I finished at VIA? I'm going back and I really want to improve on the time and the placing based on last year. I'm not going there to win it. I'm going back there to see all the people again, to see the team again, to see the Italian media crew again. Hopefully they're there again. It was so much fun. And actually, because I've now gone from the south to the middle of Europe, and next time it's going to take me all through the Scandinavian countries, and that's really cool. I don't want to repeat the same route. And the last thing, while I'm climbing again, is just take this in the way it's intended. The majority of people watching my videos know me well enough now to know I'm not a grifter. I don't do things for attention. This isn't just VIA good, TCR bad. It kind of is, it sounds like it, doesn't it? But that's not what I'm going for, but I just want people to have the best time for that 2 weeks. And I had the best time, so that's what it is. Anyway, if you've got experiences you want to chime in on, maybe you rode both like me, maybe you rode both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of VIA, let me know in the comments what you think. Or if you think I'm completely wrong, then just put that in the comments too, I don't mind. Anyway, I've been riding up and down this hill for a few hours now, so I'm going to roll down the fast side into Portsmouth. I'm going to go home and I'm going to start working on my Be Hard video because I'm actually getting some excitement for that now. And it's been too long. So I'm going to shoot off. Look after yourselves. No idea what the next one's going to be, but I'll see you next week. Take it easy. Bye-bye.